Hello, everyone. Glad you're back. I hope you enjoyed the short break that we offered all of you after the last session. And we're so pleased to be able to welcome to our next session Ravi Saligram, who's the President and Chief Executive Officer of Newell Brands. Newell Brands has a lot of iconic things that are probably in our kitchens and our homes, places like Rubbermaid and Mr. Coffee and Coleman and Graco. So it's really nice to have you with us here, joining us from Miami. I understand you look just beautiful there in the Southeast with joining us today. To join the conversation, my colleague Lori Esposito Murray is the president of our Committee for Economic Development at the Conference Board. And Lori, I will turn it over to you. Have a wonderful discussion with Ravi on business as a platform for change.
Thank you, David, and welcome, Ravi. We have a great conversation ahead of us. Thank you for joining us, and a very important one. Ravi, I'd like to start. It has been almost a year since the killing of George Floyd, and I want to take you back to how you reacted to that tragedy that triggered this national discussion on racial justice. You wrote a letter to your employees, and we actually have the link to the left of the slide on this screen, entitled Embracing Humanity. Can you share with us what you said and how and why you wrote the letter?
Thank you, Lori, and delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Lori, I went back and reread my note today, and I sent it out on June 1st, and it was a Monday. I wrote it Sunday night. I started writing. It just hit me that I need to do something. And I've always been a big champion and promoter of gender and of females in the workforce and senior levels. And that's been my cause, if you will. And I've pushed that in every company I've gone to. And it stems from I grew up with 5 aunts, and I have 2 daughters and a wife, all of whom are smarter than I am. But this one, so I really, in all honesty, I had not given the kind of attention I should have in the past on the issues of Black Americans and African Americans. So when George Floyd happened, maybe it was all the things in the past, whether it was Trayvon Martin and the others before Ahmaud Arbery. It was all bubbling in my head. And when the George Floyd thing happened, something just snapped. And I said, this is intolerable. And so I started writing. It just flowed from the heart. And so around midnight, my younger daughter was still up. I sent it to her. I said, take a look. Do you think this is okay? And then the next day I read it to I convened our employee resource group, our Black American employee group, and read it to them aloud and said, hey, does this work? What if I sent this out? And I remember that some of them had tears in their eyes, and they said, record it. I recorded it. So that's how it came about. And it was, if you're okay, I can read you a paragraph from it. And it's a lengthy letter, but is that all right? Or?
Yes, please do. Please do.
I'll pick sentences. And I said, just when we were beginning to see a faint light ahead, at the end of the Corona tunnel, the nation looked in horror at the brutal killing of George Floyd, a Black man in Minneapolis while in police custody. Why does history keep repeating itself? Why do pleas of I can't breathe keep echoing? Why has so little changed? When will the pain and sadness end? When will mothers and fathers stop fearing day and night whether their Black sons and daughters will come home safely? We must not just remember these names as hashtags. I sincerely hope this tragedy will galvanize Americans, Black, brown, white, Democrat, independent, Republican, male, female, or however one defines and identifies themselves, to come together to acknowledge and reject racism and discrimination of any kind. As Americans, we need to proactively address aspects of our society in which discrimination and racism are systemic and root them out. We need to open our hearts and truly believe that every one of us is equal, not succumb to tawdry stereotypes, or allow the insidious hand of unconscious bias to seep deep into our souls. So, it was heartfelt, and I don't know if it was politically correct or not. It didn't matter. I just wanted to express my feelings and send it out to our company. And for the most part, it had a positive response, and it sort of galvanized us into moving forward on a journey where we felt, hey, maybe we can't change the world, but we can change our world and at least start taking steps in the right direction.
So, Ravi, those are really powerful words, and it's also rings really loud your commitment to change, to real change, transformational change. And so, how have you put those words into action? And you have a global company of 30,000 employees, and how do you lead and implement that change?
Yeah, and we've started this as a North American initiative, but look, having lived in 6 countries, worked in about 50, these issues, they're just different, but they're issues around the world, and we've got to deal with them. So in the world of Newell, the first thing Lori was saying, hey, what are the 3 big issues? And so when I looked at our representational data, while we had about 30+%, 33% people of color, Blacks, Hispanics, Latinx, Asians, the number who were actually people managers, directors, VPs was significantly lower. So I felt we had to really break whatever glass ceiling there was and really get the right representation. And we also started a lot of dialogue with our employees of color, be they Black Americans or Hispanics. And what we kept hearing back was that they felt they could not bring their whole selves to work. And they felt they led double lives. And as I started talking to more people, and in different companies too, there was this feeling that you had to put on a certain face, if you will. And so I felt, hey, we need to work on that. So that was very clear. And then the third one was, particularly with our Black employees, they felt, hey, they need to be able to fulfill their full potential. And so those were the 3 we started working on and laid out a sort of roadmap saying, how do we improve the work environment? How do we create pay equity and make sure that we have the right kind of systems where there isn't inherent bias? How do we create a workplace where people can actually feel they can bring their whole selves to work? How do we make sure in senior management and in the board that we have the right set? So today I'm very proud in our board. I'm of Indian origin. We have a director who's of Hispanic origin, and then we hired a new director who's African American. So, and we've got a few females on the board as well. And so it's a very diverse board. So I think starting from the top, and then the last thing is we wanted to make sure we worked on we're a marketing company, we're a consumer products company, and we needed to make sure that our consumers and our customers were represented in our tone of voice, in our advertising, in our social media. So I looked at some of our stuff. It didn't have as many, the tone or our audience. So we're now changing that around to make sure that we represent the customers and consumers we serve.
That's a very impressive agenda that you've put together. You've called it a moral imperative to remove systemic barriers in order to what you call a level playing field for opportunity. What are the essential pillars of creating a culture of inclusiveness, and how does that fit with your business imperative?
Yeah, I think to me, Lori, it's got to start, it has to be genuine. You cannot do this because you're trying to tick a box or because it's politically correct. Because to me, diversity, having lived in 6 countries where I was the foreigner, I didn't speak people's languages. I know how it feels when you feel you're different. And so I think it's very important that the ultimate thing you're trying to get in a company, especially a consumer products company, is you want to drive innovation. But to drive innovation, you have to have diversity of thinking. You can't have people who look like you, talk like you, feel like you. Then you're just going to repeat the same stuff. So I think if you believe that diversity drives innovation, innovation drives good business results, so you've got to believe that, and then, because then it becomes a business imperative, and then you drive it systematically. It can't be slogan management. It can't be something which is the fad of the day. It's a marathon. And for us, the journey has really just begun, though we're making great progress. But this has got to be it's got to be in the DNA of the company. And it has to cascade. It's got to start with the top, then the leadership team has to believe in it. So I think when you think that way, and you believe that you can actually influence good business results, and I felt the same way, in prior lives about women. And in fact, at Newell, when I came in, we had very few women in the senior management ranks. So today, 4 out of my 8 business unit CEOs are women. So in just 14 months since I took over the job, we've changed that around. And the fact that just during the pandemic, our market cap fell down to $5 billion. Today, it's gone up about $10 billion, and we're driving the results. I certainly believe that creating a diverse leadership team, making it more inclusive, galvanizing our employees is certainly having an impact on the results.
It's interesting because Ursula Burns has said that she actually has come to believe that the board and diversity on the board, to your point about how leadership is so important, that starting at the top is absolutely critical in terms of making progress on diversity and inclusiveness. And what I'd like to, are you getting, when you wrote your letter, when you were pursuing this passionate commitment to changing Newell Brands and transforming the culture and making sure that you were a company that was very sensitive and aware and active on these issues. Did you get pushback?
Well, I certainly got some letters that were not so pleasant. And I did get a note also from someone who said, hey, it's not just Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. And that's understandable. But look, I think the important thing with this, right, is you also have to go about it in a manner which is persuasive and doesn't threaten people, and especially the majority. And you can't keep delving back into the past, and you can't, and let's just be, you can't make Caucasian people and just say, hey, oh, I want you to feel guilty, and have this sort of assumption that everyone is a racist. You can't go about that because they're not. I fundamentally believe, because I love America. I came here more than 40 years ago, and America has been so kind to me, and I live the American dream. And I feel, and I have not really experienced personally discrimination and racism. Yeah, there have been some incidents here and there, but Americans are good people. And so you can't just you can't be extreme about these. You have to bring everyone along. And in a company like ours, for me, it's more important to unite our people because the world around them is so divisive today. I mean, regardless of what political inclination you are, we know we're in a divided country. So within Newell, I want to unify. And so the more we can start creating, so we've created 4 values, which is about truth, transparency, and teamwork, and trust. And so we use that to unify, and the diversity and inclusion is good for everybody, because the more we lift up all aspects of society, and if everyone can succeed, America can be strong. So it is, I try to give the messages in a way which is moderate, centrist, and pulls people together. And I keep telling my people, be compassionate, look at each other from the other person's lens, show tolerance. And if you want to disagree, it's okay, but don't be disagreeable about it. You can disagree without being disagreeable. So, and that is we're creating, so it is the diversity and inclusion and belonging needs to be taken in the context of everything else we're doing in the company, which is a whole people first culture. We're trying to inculcate that people are what matter the most in this company. They are our best capital. More than financial capital, it's our people capital. And they see that action speaks louder than words. So when I talk about diversity and say, hey, we need to bring people along, and really, so yeah, you'll have on the fringes a few people who are belligerent, whether it's on the far left or on the far right, because they're represented in our company like anywhere else. But for the most part, our people are really unifying and galvanizing against our sort of noble purpose, if you will.
Did you get pushback from shareholders on this shareholder versus stakeholder debate?
Look, so to me, it's not an either or, because to drive shareholder value, which I firmly believe is the job of the CEO, because I'm old-fashioned. When I went to business school in 1977 and 78, we were taught job of the CEO is to drive shareholder value. I fervently believe that. But having said that, you drive shareholder value by driving stakeholder value. They're not mutually exclusive. What are stakeholders? Your customers, your consumers, your communities, and your employees. If you do good by them, if you galvanize your employees, like we talk about our purpose as being brands that provide moments of joy, peace of mind, and confidence, because a lot of our products are discretionary. So we don't want to disappoint consumers. So if you galvanize everyone on that, and then we collaborate with our customers and drive great performance. Look, that's as in the first half of this year, our sales were down 9% because of the pandemic. Second half of the year, because we got everyone moving the right direction, Lori, our sales were up 6%. I account that to the resiliency of our people. We had the best cash flow of the year in many years, $1.4 billion. So, and our EPS was up 12%. All of this because our people believed. And so to me, with shareholders, and I think today shareholders are very much into ESG. They understand that you really got to be driving sustainability, you've got to be driving good governance, but also all the social issues. So I don't see it as a conflict, and my board is very supportive as well.
So, Ravi, you've said today and have said in the past that you could change the world of Newell Brands, and if other companies followed suit, that the sum would be greater than the parts in terms of changing the world. And what advice would you give to your fellow business leaders regarding how to affect change within their companies? What are the best lessons learned that you've garnered from this past year?
Lori, I don't want to, we're also in the beginnings of a journey, and I'd hardly say we're perfect with many flaws. But look, in all humility, I can give a couple of thoughts. First thing, every CEO today of a public company in particular needs to look at that Edelman barometer that they just did globally. And in that, it's fascinating. Today, businesses are more trusted than governments. And businesses are seen as both ethical and competent, more than any other institution. And they look at, they've said 86% said CEOs need to speak out about societal issues. So I think the CEO of today needs to be authentic and empathetic and really understand the pain that people are going through, whether it's the pandemic, whether it is social justice issues. So, and with social media being so strong, if you're not seen as being genuine, I think that gets you into trouble. So the things that I'd say is, especially on diversity and inclusion, I'd say start with, do you have a diversity policy? Do you look for diverse slates? We've just made a policy saying director level and above, especially when we go external hiring, we have to have at least 2 diverse candidates for serious consideration, not token, serious. In fact, we hired, Lori, in 2020, we hired 21 vice presidents, whether they were replacements or new. 5 out of those 21 were people of color, and half of them were male, and so it was an equal split between males and females. So you've got to put it into action. You've got to put together a roadmap, because you're not going to get there overnight. You've got to look at your representation figures, and it can't be a one size fits all. You need to understand what are your issues and what are you trying to solve. But more than anything, be genuine, and don't promise things you can't deliver. And also look at your board and make sure that it starts with the board, that the board is supportive, and that you have a diverse board. I have a prediction that in 2021, that at least the number of Black board members in American Fortune 500 companies is going to double. I mean, it's a small number today, but I think it is really spurring. I mean, we have brought in a great board member. I'm a board member on Church and Dwight, and we're actively looking for one. So I think all these steps are pretty important, because if you have representation, they bring the voice.
Well, one of the questions from our audience is, what are the leadership qualities that you look for in order to make sure that these changes that you're making and your roadmap are long lasting? What type of qualities do you look for in your leadership?
So number one, it all goes back to our values of trust, transparency, telling the truth. So to me, integrity is very critical. It starts with that intellectual integrity and honesty, but also open-mindedness, an ability to change and adapt and be flexible, because today's world, if you're not adaptable and nimble, so with the pandemic, we had to completely turn around and change our plans and be flexible. And then the most important is people first. They have to be servant leaders who truly believe that their job is to serve the people below them. And they're not bosses, but they're really there to serve and to add value to their teams and people. So if they don't have that inherent empathy and authenticity, and that willingness to serve. So we say in our company, we have a philosophy: no jerks, no AHs. We don't allow them.
So, Ravi, you're clearly passionate about these problems. You're clearly committed. As a closing question, what have been the most important experiences, the defining moments in your own life and career that provided the foundation for your commitment to change on these critical issues?
So I grew up in India, and look, growing up in India, I didn't even know I was brown. So frankly, in the US, I didn't know it either, because I've been treated very well. And I think it's only in the last several years that it came to light, saying, oh, maybe I am of color. So, but having said that, for me, it's very important being surrounded by women in my life to really drive gender equality and making sure that females, because having that female diversity is so important. And now, to me, people of color, to give them a voice. I think, having lived in 5 or 6 countries, actually, the fact that I've lived there, most recently I lived in Canada, I've realized Canadians are quite different from Americans. So I think when you have a world view and you realize that, hey, you have to see things from someone else's viewpoint, and always seek to understand and not judge, and really do that, then you can build bridges. So to me, and what I'm big on is moderation. I think America, for the most part, is center left, center right. To me, it really bothers me about the extremes on the left and the right. I wish we could really become more moderate and less vitriol and more unification.
Ravi, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your actionable insights and your passion and your commitment. It has really been our privilege to talk to you. And I'd like to thank our audience for participating, and hope you join the concluding session of the conference. Thank you again, Ravi.
Thank you, Lori. It was a pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.